Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spilled Popcorn, the web series where we dissect the latest and greatest TV shows and movies with great cinematic love and more so, preposterous speculation. Across from me, my co-host with the wonderful, beautiful eyes and the perfect hair, we've got Camnoceros Rex.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to be here. Always glad to be here.
Yes, and I'm your other co-host, not as cool of a name, but it's Stegakirksaurus coming at you live when we record this. How you doing, Cam?
I am fabulous. Is the Stegosaurus your favorite dinosaur? It's mine, personally.
Is it your favorite?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Oh man, then you could be the Stegcamosaurus.
It just doesn't work, but that's okay. I'm okay. I like the other one. I like my name. I just like the Stegosaurus the best. What's your favorite dinosaur?
You know, I don't know that I remember anymore. I mean, I was big into dinosaurs as a kid. I always levitate toward Velociraptor, whichever one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. You strike me as an Archaeopteryx kind of guy. Maybe a Oryctodromeus. Maybe a Maiasaura. I don't know, Kirk. You're a mystery.
Well, actually, we're gonna just totally take another trail here, and instead of WandaVision, we're gonna talk about dinosaurs for the next half an hour. You guys ready for that?
Lots of dinosaur books with my child right now, so I feel like Dr. Grant in Jurassic Park. Like I feel like I just got it. I'm like, man, I could have been an archaeologist or something. I got it all on lock.
Yeah, dude. I don't even know all the syllables you said were built into different dinosaurs. That's insane.
Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness. Well, Cam, we have so much to dissect. This was the latest and greatest episode. It was so jam-packed.
It was.
With stuff. I got to tell you, before we begin, I'm a little sleep deprived. It's been a super busy week here, and not that that's an excuse, but I wanted to. There's a giant hair on my face. Just got to get that out of the way. Hopefully my camera is high def enough to pick that up. I doubt it is. But what I was saying, I was so sleep deprived because I was determined this week to watch this episode when it dropped in Central Time Thursday night.
And did you?
Friday morning. I did.
Ooh, I like it, Kirk. I like that.
Yeah.
There it is. There's the dedication.
Thank you. It dropped at 2 a.m. Central Time. 2 a.m.
I didn't realize. I thought it was like midnight. Your street cred just went way up.
Thank you. I mean, everything about this episode, I was glued in. I was listening. But now it's been like too far since our recording. So I'm just I'm a little bummed, but the other joy of it is that you're going to do the unwrapping today, and I'm going to get super excited when you're retelling the story like a kid hearing a marvelous fairy tale for the first time, I think.
Yeah, and I got to say, I'll balance you out because I have a television 25 feet that way, and I walked straight from watching it for the second time into this room to record. So I'm like fresh. I'm ready.
Yes. I think that's how I'm going to do it next time. I think it's going to be, all right, I'm watching this episode, and I'm going straight in.
Just go right in.
No prep time, just walking right into the recording.
Yes, sir.
That's how I'm going to go. So let's just get on it, Cam, because there's too much to walk around in here. Hit us with the unwrapping of Episode 5.
All right. As the great Samuel L. Jackson once said,
hold on to your butts.
Hold on to your butts. It's going to get bumpy. We got a lot to go through. So as Kirk said, this is a jam-packed episode. So I'm going to try to give you guys everything. I might give you too much. I might give you too little. We'll see. We'll clean it up along the way. So we're in the 80s now. Yes, Kirk, we're in the 80s, right?
That's right.
And this, I didn't actually look it up. If you look it up, people theorize kind of what the episodes are based off of. But I got sort of like a facts of life vibe from this episode. Maybe step by step a little bit, but that's kind of where we're at in terms of the timeline. We start in sitcom mode. So last week we talked about, what's the flow going to be? We start in sitcom mode. I'll just leave you there. And we've got the two twins and, we're having nice parenting antics whenever Vision and Wanda are at their wits' end with the kiddos, Agnes shows up, perfect timing. She's like, let me take care of these kids. And she has an interesting exchange with Wanda where she offers to take the kids. Vision says, no, we're good. We got this. And Agnes looks at Wanda and she's like, you want me to take the kids, right? Should we take that again? And Vision's like, what is she talking about? And Wanda's like, listen, it's fine. Let's just ignore that, whatever. Like, don't worry about it. So there's already this level of like Agnes is looking at Wanda as like some sort of director, like the stage coordinator. You know, she's like, do you want me to take that cut again? So it's a little bit interesting. Well, while Agnes is taking care of the kids, they actually age 5 years. So another thing we talked about last episode is, will the babies stay babies, or will they, you know, age at a rapid clip along with the rest of the timeline? Well, they age 5 years in the first 5 minutes of the episode. So, I mean, it's that quickly. And so they go from infants to 5-year-olds. And Agnes has this great line. She goes, kids, you can't control them no matter how hard you try. And then we hit the theme song. After the theme song, which, by the way, the theme song is I really liked it. The song, they're singing the lyrics, we're making it up as we go along is the name of the theme song. So that's a pretty good little reference, pretty meta for what's happening there. Then we're back at Sword. We're at the Sword camp outside of the anomaly. And basically Monica has been thrown out of the anomaly, so that's where we're at. So episode 3 and episode 4 kind of ended in the same spot, and so we haven't really gotten to check in with Monica following the anomaly, and so she's getting debriefed by Tyler Hayward. Jimmy Woo is there, Darcy's there. They start kind of theorizing things and bouncing back and forth. Tyler Hayward, who's the acting director of Sword right now, briefs all of the personnel who are there. And he's sort of painting this picture of Wanda as this terrorist. You know, she was out to get the Avengers. And then Jimmy Woo's like, well, no. She gained their trust and then joined the Avengers. And he's like, well, how did that turn out? Look at Lagos, which is when she caused the explosion in Civil War. Look at Germany. And, you know, he's saying basically that she's been out to get the Avengers this whole time and is basically like this maybe Hydra-powered terrorist who's infiltrated the Avengers. He's painting this whole picture. Then he drops on us a video of Wanda breaking into Sword headquarters to steal Vision's corpse. And so now we know, as you theorized last episode, Kirk, that Vision is in fact dead and his corpse has been reanimated by Wanda in the Westview anomaly. So that's our first big reveal.
Big reveal. It's just snuck in there like this side story subplot that you're like, are they really doing this? Like... Everything that we have seen up until this moment in episode 5, we've seen everything play out. And this is the first thing that they're not backtracking at all, but really just like throwing in a piece of the puzzle that's very, very much relevant, but just out of the linear progress that we've hit. So
absolutely
big move.
It is big. And from there, we kind of go into a mode where Darcy and Jimmy and Monica, sort of sensing that they're on similar wavelengths and that Tyler Hayward is on like a different wavelength because he thinks Wanda's evil, they start sort of figuring out like, okay, how can we get back into the anomaly? What do we need to look at? Blah, blah, blah. You know, how can we do this? And they come up with this theory based on the fact that Monica's clothes in her Geraldine outfit were made out of 87% Kevlar, that basically because she was wearing a Kevlar vest when she came into the anomaly, that Wanda just took that clothing and reformed it. It still has the same physical properties, but it looks different. And so Monica comes up with this idea of, well, if we send something in there that is, you know, meant to be there, then Wanda won't be aware of it and won't have to reformulate it. So they send in this 1980s drone to spy on Wanda. Wanda comes out of her house and confronts it. And then Tyler Hayward directs the person driving the drone to shoot Wanda. Take the shot. All of a sudden, screen goes blank. Wanda comes out of the anomaly and confronts Sword. So Wanda comes out. She's in full outfit. She's got her accent is back in some way, you know, just a little bit, but it's there.
Yes.
And she's like, hey, is this yours? So she's confronting the outside world. She's aware of it. And they have a standoff. Monica tries to talk Wanda down, and she's like, this is my home. Get out of here. And like causes this big distraction and goes back inside the anomaly. So we've got that going on. Then the rest of the episode, we're actually in sitcom mode, I think, for the duration. So from there, Vision the whole time is onto this because he had the interaction with Agnes. Agnes shows up at another time in the episode, and he's like, I knew you would show up right then. Then he goes to work, and they get an email through the computer from Darcy that's talking about the Maximoff anomaly. So at this point, the jig is up. Vision's like, he knows everything that's going on, and he actually takes Norm that he works with and takes the spell basically off of him. And Norm's talking about, oh my gosh, you have to stop her. You have to stop her. You know, you have to make her stop. And then he makes Norm go back under the spell to kind of get him under control. At which point, Vision comes home and confronts Wanda. While this is going on, the twin boys, Billy and Tommy, have their own subplot going with this dog. They've got this little dog. They're now 10 years old. The dog runs out the front door during the whole drone fiasco, and they're looking for it. Well, the dog died, got into Agnes's azalea bushes, ate the leaves, passed away. And so Wanda has this big conversation with them about, like, you can't bring the dead back to life. And they're like, Mom, you can bring the dead back to life. And Agnes is like, you can do this. And so that's going on. Vision comes home and confronts Wanda. They get in a physical altercation where they're both starting to use their powers. And all of a sudden the doorbell rings. And who is at the door? Pietro. Quicksilver, her brother who died, but not the Pietro that we know and love from Age of Ultron, but a very different Pietro, and we'll talk about that in the butter. Is that everything? Man, I feel like I've been talking for 1,000 years.
No, dude. It was fantastic. I mean, this is what, if film didn't exist, which thank goodness it does, but if film didn't exist and we were back in the 1910s and you had concocted this idea of comic books and you were telling that, I'd be like, dude, this is the greatest storyteller on the block. On the block. It's so good. It's so good. I got like chills. Like I was like riding the wave as you told it. Like as I was watching the show, dude. It's so perfect. It's so perfect. There's so many things else packed into there. Like so the anomaly. You know, Dr. Darcy wants to call it the hex because of the hexagonal shape of the full scope of the area that Wanda is taking up of Westview. There's the Lagos commercial that's hopped in there.
You're right.
And of course, the whole episode itself in the 80s, right? The whole episode in the 80s, it's no longer this feel good like the 50s and 60s and even the 70s was. We have a real dramedy happening with this episode, and man, it's just so perfectly crafted.
It's such a good point. You know, you talk about the 80s and how sitcoms sort of changed from kind of depicting this perfect life to like trying to coach people through issues. And so you know the hard questions are going to get asked. And she's having conversations with her kids about death. She's talking to her, you know, her and her husband are having fights. Like, this is a new era of sitcom that coincides directly with what is needed in their conflict. So it's really brilliantly done. It's, I think, the best episode so far. I think the show continues to improve episode over episode.
Yes. I love how you said, you know, life lessons. Like, you know, at that point in you know, cinematic and television history, you didn't see people resolve conflicts. There just weren't that great of conflicts. So when they're fighting in the kitchen and she walks away trying to like just like blasé about it, and he goes after her, he's like, no, we're going to talk about this. We're going to figure this out. Vision does it. It's like, oh wow, this is an 80s episode. Let's go.
She rolls credits on him, which is pretty crazy. I love that scene. He goes, I'm on to you, Wanda. You can't control me like the rest of them. And she goes, can't I? And credits roll. And the music starts playing, and he chases after her. It's a really good scene. Really, really strong. And it's the perfect, like, micro section of that show to show exactly what's been happening this whole time.
Yes, and it's also so good. I 100% thought that was the end of the episode. I was like, this is where they're going to leave us?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, man. Thank God they didn't.
So let's hop into the butter. Let's just go head first. You want to talk about Pietro first here?
I mean, we can talk about it. So this is the big cameo. We talked a little bit about, if you listen to our podcast, Popcorn for Breakfast, we talked about this on this week's episode, that Elizabeth Olsen has been teasing this Luke Skywalker-esque cameo a la The Mandalorian, if you haven't seen that show. If so, I just dropped the biggest spoiler ever in history right on your lap, so I apologize for that. But we got our big cameo, and it was Pietro. But Dr. Darcy Lewis gives us a quote. She says, she's recast Pietro? And the reason she says that, and here's the thing, man, this is where things get weird, so you got to bear with us here. This this thing I knew was going to fly right over my wife's head because she did not watch the old X-Men movies. And there were many people in this boat. Pietro shows up, but it's not Aaron Taylor Johnson, the actor.
You didn't see that coming?
It's Evan Peters, who last appeared as Quicksilver in the Fox X-Men series.
Yes, that's right. So in the reboot where we get the younger kids, Jennifer Lawrence is Mystique.
Yep.
And you've got
Michael
Evan
Fassbender
Peters.
is Magneto, and James McAvoy is Professor X, and we got a whole bunch of people there. But yeah, this is the Quicksilver from that reality. Peter Maximoff, not Pietro.
Yes. So there's a fantastic scene in is it Days of Future Past where you have him running and saving the kids when inevitably the school blows up for the 100th time. He's running in there and hopping off debris and grabbing the kids and getting them out of the building. It's an awesome scene, and I think they all in all they underutilize in both MCU and with the X-Men series. They underused Pietro all around. So it's kind of neat what direction this leads us to.
Well, it fundamentally changes the way that we rethink the MCU. And I think if we had not known all these rumors about Spider-Man 3 and them opening up the Sony multiverse, which is all rumored, none of it's confirmed, but it's all rumored, I think this would have been 20 times more mind-blowing. But Marvel recently acquired these Fox properties, and they are effectively telling us that they're recognizing those as canon in some form, that reality is tangential to, or parallel perhaps, to the reality that the MCU takes place in, and that we're able to tap into that. So I think the question becomes, did Wanda pull this Pietro in from a different reality? She looked for a reality in which her brother was still alive, and she was like, gotcha, and pulled it in. Or did somebody else let this thing in? Did somebody else open this up? Maybe it was Agnes. Maybe it was, because we still think Agnes could be Agatha Harkness, who's a witch and has capabilities like this. Could it have been her? Could it have been some dark force, some villain? Who let the cat out of the bag here? I think that's the question. Who let the
dogs out? I think you meant to say who let the dogs out in that sense there.
And another thing that's important to note, they're having this conversation, her and Vision, and the doorbell rings. And Vision's immediately like, what are you doing, Wanda? And she's like, that's not me. And she's like, you don't believe me, but it's true. That's not me. So it does make you wonder, does she have full control over everything that's happening? We get the sense that she has a decent amount of control over everything that's happening, but does she have full control? She has this whole thing where she's talking with Vision at the end. Do you think I'm controlling all this? Getting people to their dentist appointments, making everybody go to work, all this stuff.
Mow their lawn.
Yeah, I'm not. She's like basically alluding to, I'm not doing that. I don't even know how this whole thing started, she says. So we've got these conflicting facts. We know that she took Vision's body. We know that she's reanimated him. We know that she is aware of the anomaly. She's aware of the outside world. And yet she says that she is in control of it, but also not fully aware of everything that's happening. So it just does make you wonder, is this all Wanda? As Monica said fortuitously at the end of the last episode, it's Wanda. It's all Wanda. Is it all Wanda? Or are there other forces at play here? Perhaps evil forces at play.
That's right. I think that leads us directly into the crumbs,
yes.
Because one might say that she might have made a deal with the devil, because if she thinks that she's in control, but she doesn't actually have total control as she's seeing, then who else is either partnering with her or manipulating her, threatening her, a promise too good to be true, to be able to live her life out with Vision as she thought she was going to be able to do. There's a lot of rumors out there, of course, of the famous villain in the Marvel comics called Mephisto, who is essentially the devil. He's not actually the devil. He's red. He's big. He's strong.
He just has the devil in him.
That's right. That's right. So the Marvel has continuously tried to make that separation over and over and over again because he's this dark lord of this underworld in a similar way to Hades is, but they don't want to call him the devil, but he's the devil. Let's be honest. So
yeah, and I mean, we mentioned Mephisto before. I think a couple of episodes ago when Billy and Tommy were born, because again, if taking us back to that episode, the conversation we have, just as a refresh, in the comics, Billy and Tommy are Wanda's kids, but they're not her. She did not conceive them. She sort of conjured them, and she conjured them using pieces of Mephisto's soul, unbeknownst to her. And so at some point in the comics, Mephisto reclaims them and they go away. And that triggers Wanda to go berserk. Agatha Harkness puts a spell on her to get her to forget about her children. And things kind of shift back to normal for a period of time until she once again remembers that she had kids and goes nuts. So there is a lot there. And with Billy and Tommy being there, you know, it's fully them, you know, it does make you wonder, are they going to go the full Mephisto route? Could Mephisto have either let Quicksilver in, this other Quicksilver, to try to like stir the pot, or is it him manifesting himself in Quicksilver form to reclaim the pieces of his soul that are now Billy and Tommy? I mean, it's getting wild, but that is a possibility.
So if that is the correct speculation, that timeline, though tight, could actually be accurate. Because if you remember, when Monica Rambeau wakes up from the blip, she doesn't go back to work for about, I think they might say 6 weeks. They say a couple of weeks.
I think they say
6
3.
weeks.
Yeah, 3
Is
weeks.
It 3? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So 3 weeks would allow plenty of time for the events of Endgame to play out.
Yes.
And a little bit of extra. So maybe that's a 2-week timeline. Got to go watch that back and see if we get dates on that. But then that could be as tight-knit as it is for Wanda to meet Mephisto outside of Endgame and to make all of that craziness begin in our world of the MCU.
It is possible.
And so we first saw our flashback in this episode of things we didn't know, of her breaking in and getting his body. So why not a full-on flashback again in episode 6 when we're hopefully in the 90s?
Yeah, hopefully we are, and I think we will be. It's interesting, a couple of things there on the timeline fact. Acting director of S.W.O.R.D., Tyler Hayward, who we said in the last episode gives off big-time bad guy vibes, big time. He states that Wanda broke into S.W.O.R.D. headquarters 9 days ago, is what he says. And we know that it's been 24 to 48 hours since the anomaly was discovered by Monica. And so did Tyler Hayward know about Wanda breaking into S.W.O.R.D. headquarters prior, like when he met with Monica? Did he know that? And did he know that he was sending her there? It's hard to know. It's a weird situation.
What? Well, yeah. Well, because when you think about it, those people, they're all talking classified. Well, that's classified. That's classified. You know, maybe this is the lead. I don't know. Let's see if it's her. Why not? Could be any mutant. Or did he know? Or is Director Hayward Mephisto?
Is he in on it? Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Did he know? And will Monica put those pieces together? So I think that's really where we're at. I think it's hard to know what's going to happen there, but I want to hit on a few other things in the crumbs as far as speculation. First of all, a little housekeeping from last week will be addressed in this too, because we talked about New Jersey at the beginning of last episode, but we didn't actually circle back to it. Here's an interesting point that I want to draw some attention to from the episode. When Monica is doing her debriefing, they're doing labs, they're doing blood work, they're doing everything on her. They give her x-rays. The x-rays come back and they're totally wiped. There's nothing there. And the technician's like, there's something wrong with the x-rays. You know, we're going to have to retake them. Like I said, something's messed up, whatever. Well, here's the question for you. In the comics, I keep getting Wanda and Monica mixed up. In the comics, Monica Rambeau is many different heroes, but most prominently a hero called Photon, which, as you will remember, is the nickname that Maria Rambeau had on her plaque in the S.W.O.R.D. headquarters. It said Maria Photon Rambeau.
Yes.
And Photon is a character very similar to Captain Marvel in terms of her abilities and how she, how she's made up. Basically, she's comprised of pure energy. And so it makes you wonder that, Geraldine / Monica in the anomaly, high levels of radiation, high levels of CMBR, gets hit full force with a blast from Wanda. Did she just inherit some sort of superpowers? Is her body now comprised of pure energy, and is she Photon?
Yes. Or was it activated? So if Maria is actually Photon in this world,
good point.
And did it get passed on through genetics, and now she's going to become Photon too? She's picking up the mantle. So most times we see our superheroes get their power after an event, and that very well could have been the event. Also, speaking on that, pretty much directly after that conversation, there's mention of Captain Marvel, and there is direct tension. I mean, tension about the mention of Captain Marvel's name. I believe there are some different storylines out there in the comics where they do come to blows, Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau. So we could see this play out, and I'm hoping, since we're getting into the 90s next week, I'm hoping that we could actually see some of this in more of an immediate sense, because as we know, Captain Marvel's on the 90s timeline.
Yep.
So I believe in the next 2 episodes, then we could see some of that friction. Well, in the 90s, I guess we're getting baby Monica. So then maybe it's in the 2000s when they fully come to fighting each other.
Well, yeah, and it's a good point. I mean, so she changes subjects as soon as Captain Marvel's mentioned. She says, "We're not talking about her," which is like, that was intentional and odd, right away. Trying to reconcile what happens in the comics with what's happening in the MCU. Could it be that Monica is hurt from Captain Marvel disappearing? She connects with Maria. She makes an impact on little Lieutenant Treble, little Monica Rambeau, and then she's off to the cosmos for however long and doesn't come back until Thanos. And at that point, Monica's gone. I mean, she's been blipped. She has no idea. She probably doesn't. I mean, does she even know that Captain Marvel is alive at this point? She might now, because after the fact, it's been time. She's probably caught up on how things went down. But if she is alive, Monica might be like, "Hey, where the heck were you? My mom had cancer. Where were you?
Yes.
And you're just gone. Your best friend has cancer, and you're just gone." Like that, I think, could be part of what's going on there. So that's a really good point. Let's circle back to New Jersey again. So we're talking about the anomaly. We're talking about radiation. We're getting the sense that whatever's going on with this anomaly is able to impact things outside of it. And this is where, again, I mentioned at the beginning of the last episode, New Jersey is significant. There is a young superhero who gets her origin in Jersey City, New Jersey, and her name is Kamala Khan, also known as Miss Marvel, who has an upcoming Disney Plus series as well. Could she have gotten her powers from the radiation from the Westview, New Jersey anomaly? I don't know. It's worth speculating about for sure.
Yes, everyone's getting their power. We're gonna find out that like 30 different mutants.
Jimmy Woo's gonna be like Power Man or something like that. It's gonna get wild.
He's gonna like go to take a shower in the makeshift showers and just be like ripped all of a sudden and be like, "This is amazing,"
Yeah.
Like Tobey Maguire style when he becomes Spider-Man, just has all this muscle tone.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really fantastic. I love that speculation. I love that we are diving more and more towards these young mutants, just getting on their turf, seeing all of it come together, and still seeing the commercials pop up and the noticeable tension inside of Wanda's mind that still does lead us to believe that this is some mental therapy going on in her subconscious about, she has so much guilt. I mean, if Elizabeth Olsen wasn't the one to be this movie, I think my wife could be very good at this. She often runs off guilt, and I'm like, yeah, I see this. Like she's nailing this. So Elizabeth Olsen has some guilt in her life too as a person. So one of the things they do this like Bounty Quicker Picker Upper paper towel commercial, which is from the 80s. It's so perfect. The brand name of the paper towel is called Lagos, which, if we remember, there was a big accident, and it was Wanda's accident because she wasn't quite in control of her powers back then. Who's to say that she is now? But ultimately, a bunch of people died because she couldn't hold a force field together, and a building came tumbling down again. And so the tagline of this paper towel company here is cleaning up a mess when you didn't mean to. To that effect. And she didn't mean to do it, so she's processing her feelings through these now. And at first, the other commercials, which is fascinating, is that they were like little crumbs of what's going on around her. We had Hydra, we had Strucker, but this one specifically is about her own internal processing of events in her life. So I don't know if we're going to see more direction of this, like harder. I don't know if we're going to see more breaks in the actors in the commercials. I'm so fascinated to see how we're going to tie all these together and who those two characters are that keep recurring in the commercials as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, heading into this, I wouldn't have said that Wanda or Scarlet Witch had the most complex story arc of any character in the MCU. I would have probably given that mantle to Thor following Endgame, to be quite honest with you. He's really well developed by the end of that. But now I think she sort of takes the cake, right? I mean, I think it's easy to see why she's in this mental health crisis, for lack of a better term. She's lost Vision, the one person she opened herself up to following, everything that happened in her life. She lost her parents, joined up with Hydra, got manipulated. She lost Black Widow. She lost Tony Stark. She, whenever she was trying to help, oftentimes messed things up because she didn't have full control over her powers. I mean, she's got a lot to deal with. And it's manifesting in many, many different ways inside the anomaly. I think that's a good call out. I think a couple other quick things. You mentioned the hex. I think that's an interesting double entendre, that it's hexagonal and also a hex, meaning a spell or something that a witch could do. Is that another potential nod to, Scarlet Witch created this, or did another witch create this? Did Agatha Harkness create this hex? So that's an interesting point. Here's a fun one. My stack of source material over here is getting pretty chonky, I have to say. It's getting real thick. Fun fact with the dog, Sparky, whose original name was going to be Sniffy until he sniffs the electrical outlet and gets zapped, and Agnes says, maybe Sparky, in her amazing way. That's a reference to Tom King's Eisner Award-winning comic, The Vision, in which they have basically a Frankenweenie type reanimated Cybertronic dog that they bring back to life, and its name is Sparky. So that was a really fun one for me personally. I love that comic. So we'll see if Sparky, who sadly passed away, finds new life in the next episode or something. Maybe he gets reanimated.
There's a very real possibility of that. Last thing I want to guess here with you, Cam. We're heading into the 90s. Will the set of the 90s be reminiscent of Full House?
Yeah, it has to be. I think it has to be. I think based on some promo material, I want to say there is a scene that I saw in a commercial where Vision's wearing like a Tim the Toolman Taylor type of outfit. So maybe they do Home Improvement instead, but that would be a massive missed opportunity if they don't go Full House in the 90s episode. I mean, as meta as this show is, like, let's just lean into it, right? Let's just lean into it all the way.
Yes.
It has to be. And I want the theme song to sound almost exactly the same. I want it to be almost identical.
Dude, and I was, there's a moment in the theme song with this one where they're on a picnic blanket. There's a long wide shot. I was like, wait a second. Before the house was really revealed, I was like, dang it, I thought it was going to happen because Full House was late 80s to early 90s.
Yes,
so
you're right.
It could have happened anywhere. I'm really hoping that they pull out all the stops. I would even be floored if they want to have like multiple Wandas and have Ashley and Mary Kate in there too. Like, let's go. Like, you have all of the options too.
Here, yeah, I think that would be great. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think it's important to keep in mind, we've speculated in past episodes that Doctor Strange may appear. I still think that is very, very much a possibility. I mean, as I mentioned before, I can't remember. I think it's Avengers Disassembled, where, or actually I think it's House of, I can't remember. They're so similar, but where Doctor Strange comes in and is like, he meets Wanda on the astral plane and he's like, enough is enough. This ends right now. I still think, that's my pick for kind of where things end here, because remember, the next movie we are expecting to see Wanda Maximoff in is Doctor Strange 2, which is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So I really do think there is a chance that they get to a point where Doctor Strange is the only one who can intervene here, and he's the one that comes in, takes over and blows this thing up. But I think the biggest question we're left with, and one that I just can't know the answer to, and I don't think any of us do, is where do they go with the X-Men ties from here? We've got a straight pullover from that young X-Men crew that you talked about, basically that first class timeline of X-Men characters. So is James McAvoy our Professor X? Is Michael Fassbender our Magneto? Is Jennifer Lawrence our Mystique? My head is spinning. And will this be just a slight nod and then it's over? We've opened up the multiverse a tad bit. I just can't see that from Kevin Feige. I know he's got a master plan up his sleeve. And would you, Kirk, I've got a question for you. I'm going to flip the tables on you.
Okay.
Would you be okay with that? Would you be okay with opening it up to a cast of X-Men characters that we're already familiar with, or would you be sad that you lost out on some new castings?
Oh, great question. I think there's an opportunity to do both. If you could bring Evan Peters in here or Peter Evans, I keep flipping his name around.
Evan Peters, you're right. Yeah.
And if you could bring him in and all of them kind of interact with each other, kind of like, the DC is famous for this with the Flash. Yep. And if this is the perfect opportunity to let these people figure timelines out and fix mistakes and make new ones. So I don't know that I am ready for a full new cast. I'll say that as I'm working it out here, because we have so many already. So to throw more in, it just gets confusing at that point. Maybe like 3-4 years down the line, yeah. But if you're reminding us of Mr. Evan Peters, I want to live with that for a while. Him and Aaron Taylor Johnson. Yeah. Yeah,
it's a good point. Here's the thought I'll leave you with. It recently came out, Ryan Reynolds actually tweeted this himself, that the original plot for Deadpool 3 prior to the purchase of Fox by Disney was a road trip movie between him and Hugh Jackman. That was basically the plot. And I'm like, why is that not still the plot? Just personally, why is that not still the plot? Because that sounds incredible. But, Deadpool did some crazy timeline cleanup at the end of Deadpool 2. He used Cable's time sliding device to erase some movies to bring some people back to life. Hugh Jackman said he's done with Wolverine, but if they bring back the rest of those X-Men guys, I don't see how they don't bring back Hugh Jackman. What are your thoughts on that?
Yep, I could see him, even if it's for 10 minutes, and that's all we need. And even if it's, again, if we're maybe he introduces the new Wolverine, they've got to have people lined up, because Wolverine's too giant of a property to let it lie. Even though Hugh Jackman is the OG, the king.
Yes.
I could really see him running into it. Even Wolverine fighting other timeline Wolverine, dude, that would be sick.
Yes.
Like
fighting the Daniel Radcliffe Wolverine.
Yes. Whoever it might be, I know you've got a good dream cast right there. So, I would say if they're introducing each other, that'd be a fun way to do it. If we do have to get a new cast right away.
Yeah, again, I think we're back to more questions than answers territory on WandaVision, which is a bummer because I felt like last week we really made some strides forward. But one thing that's for sure is that it's going to be a crazy last 4 episodes.
Yes, indeed. And just as a reminder, everyone, don't watch this at 2 a.m. when it drops. Maybe if you're in a better time zone and it hits at midnight, fair game. But otherwise, man, I'm still recovering. I'm about to pass out right now. So, guys, we appreciate you. We can't wait to speculate with you more. Next week, new episode drops next Friday. That's going to be episode 6. It's going to be wild. Thank you, Rhetoric, for all of our original music on here on Spilled Popcorn. Don't forget to check out our regular podcast, Popcorn for Breakfast. You can check out all of our social media, our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Hit us up. We'll see you next time, guys.
Peace.